When looking at types of stress, there are two major types. We have acute, which is when something is coming at you directly, like a bear or a dog, and is going to attack you, and you have to either fight it or you have to run away. Chronic stress is more of that dull, chronic hum. So sometimes we don't even really realize that we have those stressors. But then one day we find ourselves, gnawing on the edge of our computer. Okay, so these two different stressors can be from something physical or something emotional. The top 10 causes of extreme stress could be death of a loved one, childhood trauma, divorce, finances, employment, whether it's getting a new job or losing a job, poor health, personal relationships, chronically ill child or parent, pregnancy, danger, and fear. So those are the top 10 causes of extreme stress. So take a minute and think of if you have any of those experiences. There are some kind of unusual symptoms to stress. We could have physical pain where we're suffering from an upset stomach, a headache. You hear people talking about migraines. That could be a symptom of stress potentially. Could be like constipation, diarrhea. It could be lots of different symptoms, aches and pains. When looking at behavioral, that's where we might see chronic overeating or chronic dieting. Both could be symptoms of stress. For example, we might have someone yelling at other people often. That could be a behavioral symptom of being under stress. Emotional could have depression, anxiety. Cognitive I think is the most unusual to me. I was the most surprised when I saw cognitive, and then I started thinking about it. When we have cognitive issues related to stress, we start having memory problems, difficulty concentrating, maybe difficulty interacting with other people, such as social phobias. So keep an eye out for these unusual symptoms. Looking at the stress curve, so stress is helpful for us. We do need some amount of stress. Because you can see if we get too little stress, then we're actually way in this laid back category and we're not really functioning optimally. So we need to go up this ladder a little ways to get into the good area where we're functioning really well. But then, of course, if we get too far, then we get into this fatigue, which can lead to exhaustion, anxiety, panic, anger, and then eventually breakdown. So we want to try to keep it in that yellow optimum range. Many adults do find their selves, getting way over into that red zone at times, and it can be really difficult to get us back to that optimum stage. So if it's ever possible, if you don't know what that red zone is like, that's great. That's excellent. You don't want to get there. Okay, so the whole idea of this is we want to talk about what stress does to us and for us and how we can manage it so that we don't get into that breakdown stage of things. Now, one thing that can cause stress is food. Okay, we can have stress by just thinking about food, thinking like, oh my gosh, I can't wait till I can have a cupcake. I can't wait till dinner. Oh my gosh, I'm going to a potluck. That's super stressful. What am I going to do when I get there? What if there's no food that I like? What if I like everything? Okay, so we can have all these stressors related to food. And many, many more. Those are just a couple examples, right? So physiologically, we can have stress related to food as well. So if we spend a whole lot of time down in this 1 and 2 range of this hunger scale where we're ravenously hungry or over hungry, then that can actually cause our stress hormones to raise in the body, such as cortisol, and that can encourage us to eat and eat and eat and eat until we get down to this end. So that'll encourage us to stay down here where we're feeling full and stuffed and maybe even sick. So that's not going to be very helpful for us. But what happens even in a more addition to that, if that's not bad enough already, when we're down in this 1 to 2 range and our stress hormones raise, that cortisol is also encouraging our body to hold on to those extra calories, saying, we spend a lot of time down in this starvation state. We better hold on to some of these calories because what if we don't get more food again later? So we better pack it away in the closets just in case. So that's when we see weight gain coming on. And a person says, well, geez, I hardly eat anything. How can I possibly be gaining weight? And it's because of this very system. And then the other thing, so we're packing on extra weight, usually in our body's kind of favorite loading spot, which is often around the abdomen or in the hips or in the butt or in the thighs, just depending on the person. Um, so we're packing on this extra weight, and then our body craves high calorie, high fat foods, often even in those high carbohydrate, high sugars. So we're craving these extra foods, or craving them in large amounts, and that's when we're going back over to that stuffed, full, and sick categories. So it's a really negative circle. So trying to reduce that overall stress, whether it's reducing the stress by eating appropriately, and so not being in that 1 to 2 range, or if it's reducing stress like emotional stress, like or reducing those acute and chronic stressors. Those can all play a role. It's interesting whether it's emotional or physical, it's affecting our body in the same way. We're still releasing the same chemicals and the same hormones. Very interesting stuff. So, the idea with this hunger scale is to try to stay between 3 and 7. So try to eat when you get those hunger pangs, and then try to stop eating when you feel completely satisfied. So by staying in that middle range, that's when we're going to prevent that being over hungry and then leading to that overeating. Now, there's not any one particular number that you need to aim for. Just anywhere in that range is a good, healthy spot to be to help keep your body having a nice flow and a nice rhythm. Okay, when looking at controlling stressors outside of eating, maybe they relate to eating because they cause kind of an emotional overeating, but maybe they don't relate to eating at all. So this is just a worksheet, and you'll see this attached so that you can fill it out yourself. So we want to look at life stressors and daily stressors. So life stressors might be those big things like, are your parents getting remarried? Are your parents getting divorced? Are you changing schools? Looking at a whole list of things that could be happening in your life that could be those big items that you may or may not necessarily have control over. Okay, looking at daily stressors could be having just your friends at school. They could be good friends or they could be not so good friends, and they could still cause stress. So looking at what might be stressful amongst your friends, or do you have to walk a long distance to get home? Do you have a long way from the bus stop? Maybe you have to pay for your own gas, and that's stressful because you don't have a job during the school year. So anything during the day, kind of day to day, that's causing stress. Looking at specific situations that might cause stress. So if you go to, like I said before, if you go to a picnic, is it stressful to go to the picnic because you're worried that there might be no foods that you like, or and then you'll go home hungry? Or do you worry that you'll like all the foods and you'll overeat? Do you worry maybe that that a certain person will be there that you don't like? Or do you worry that maybe your friends won't be there, or you'll show up first? There's so many different things that can cause this trigger. Maybe it's traveling for sports or traveling with your family. Could be staying at a friend's house. Kind of those same things as going to a picnic. Same issues. Could be what are they going to make for dinner? Is it going to be something you like or not? Okay, so what kind of situations might trigger those stressful feelings? And then how do you confront or deal with those stressors? Sometimes we just have to attack them head on. So how do we make those stressors be reduced by actually confronting them? So in the example of traveling or going to a picnic, maybe bringing a snack with you, and then that you have something healthy and you have something that you like, just in case. You're not obligated to eat anything at the picnic. Or same with the traveling. The traveling can be stressful because you never know, maybe when there's a chance to eat, and bringing a snack could serve the same purpose. Now going to a friend's house, this is one of my favorite examples, so I'm just gonna tuck it in there and see what you think of it. Could be asking your friends or your parents' friends if you guys can cook dinner for everyone. And yeah, it makes extra work for you. You have to cook, but then you get to cook whatever you want. Okay, then I want to move on to, excuse me, looking at distractions you can use to run interference on stress. Sometimes it's not something you can necessarily confront or deal with, right? So if it's in the example of losing a loved one or having parents be, getting married or getting divorced, that's not something that is necessarily your particular issue that you can confront, but it can still be causing you stress. So how can you distract yourself to to be able to manage that stress in a healthful way so that it's good for your body? Because if you were to use unhealthy tactics to manage that stress, then the person who's really getting hurt by that is you. And is that really worth it? So we want to take a look at some distractions that you can use. Maybe reading a book, walking a dog, talking to your friends, listening to music, maybe going dancing, have a little living room dance party. I don't know. Some way that you can find enjoyment by, by kind of taking yourself away from the situation. And then sometimes you just need to relax. It's just need to just decompress. Take some deep breaths, meditate, could be go for a long, take a long scented bath with like candles and petals or something. Do some yoga, maybe take a walk in nature, call a friend. If you're the type of person who likes to go for a jog or do activity and that's relaxing for you, then doing some light or moderate intensity activity can help to relieve and relieve stress and relax. So it's really important to help bring those stressors down. Otherwise, the total stress load in our body, we go back to this high stress curve, and instead of being kind of down in here, we get up in here. So we don't really want to do that. I know I don't. I hope that you don't want to be up there, because it's just a really uncomfortable place. So we want to try to bring all those stressors down, so that we can manage them and live optimally.